December 3rd. I'm Brian Rudy, the mayor. I'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Rudy.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson. Present. Councilmember Spear. Here. Councilmember Mortensen. Here. Councilmember Castle. Here. Councilmember Neal.
Present.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a proclamation for Wreaths Across America. Whereas Wreaths Across America's story began over 15 years ago when the Worcester Wreath Company from Harrington, Maine started the tradition of placing wreaths on the headstones of our nation's fallen heroes at Arlington National Cemetery during the holidays. And whereas the National Wreaths Across America mission is to remember the fallen, honor those who serve, and to teach our children the value of freedom. And whereas this mission is symbolized by laying Christmas wreaths on graves of our fallen heroes on the second or third Saturday of December in each year. And whereas a National Wreaths Across America program honored over 1 million veterans in over 1,600 locations in 2018 by placing wreaths in ceremonies and at state capitals across America. Whereas the City of Evans would like to express its gratitude to the numerous community organizations and volunteers that have helped honor all 187 veterans in the Evans Cemetery. Whereas the City of Evans would like to give a special thanks to the members of the Evans VFW Post Auxiliary members, the Admonson Warmouth VFW, and the Poudre River Young Marines, and the Greeley Exchange Club for donating their time and money to honor all of the veterans in the Evans Cemetery. Whereas the Wreaths Across America program in Evans is an outstanding honor to the city's fallen heroes, and the city is committed to partnering with these organizations in the future to continue honoring our veterans every Christmas. And whereas Evans residents owe a deep debt of gratitude to all of those who have served, are serving, and will serve in our nation's armed forces. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Brian Rudy, Mayor for the City of Evans, Colorado, do here proclaim the second Saturday of December as Wreaths Across America in Evans. In witness hereto, I have hereunto set my hand and caused to fix the official seal of the City of Evans this third day of December 2019. And I know someone is here from Wreaths Across America. I said, hey, there they are. You want to step up to the podium if you'd like to say anything?
Where's it me? Go.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Well, I just want to thank the City of Evans. It's an honor to do this. We have reached our goal. We were able to get all 189 now. We had 2 recent ones to add. And I appreciate Karen keeping me up to date, and I really appreciate all the work. And the more we can get the word out, the better it will be. And we had a lot of Evans businesses that helped, and it's just been wonderful, and I can't thank you enough.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's such an outstanding organization and such a great thing to do. And as mayor of this city, I get to do a lot of cool and fun things and things that mean a lot to me. But being there, doing the Wreaths Across America is one of my favorite things I get to do as mayor. It's a true honor. So thank you guys very much. Next item on the agenda is audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address City Council on any item not on the agenda this evening? And then we'll move on. Approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item 7, consent agenda. Item A, approval of the November 19th, 2019 City Council meeting minutes. Item B, consideration of resolution number 37-2019, authorizing a mail ballot election for the city's regular municipal election on April 7th, 2020, and granting specific oversight to the city clerk. Item C, consideration of resolution number 38-2019, a resolution establishing the 2020 city council meeting dates and times. And item D, consideration of resolution number 39-2019, a resolution designating the public place for the posting of notices of public meetings.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item 8, new business, public hearing, consideration of resolution number 27-2019, approving the final plat, neighborhood development plan, and development guide for the Peakview final plat. I will open the public hearing and hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. We're pleased tonight to have for your consideration the final plat for the Peakview, perhaps Solstice, PUD development. This will be for the first phase of the project, and I will turn it over to our, I will say, now ongoing permanent city employee community development director, Ann Bess Johnson.
Oh, good.
So,
Congrats.
and Randy Reedy, sorry.
I'm excited to have Ann join us as well, as I hope you are. She's amazing as a contract employee and is already doing great things as a full-time employee for the city. So pleasure to work with her, and we look forward to continuing to work with you. This is the next step in the Peakview development. You last saw this as a rezoning request, a zoning request to PUD during the summer. This is the next step. It is a final plat for filing 1A and 1B. Ann and the applicant will go through some details in terms of what that final plat looks like and how they're proposing to prepare that. The next steps that you will see would be a development agreement coming before you that will specify the commitments of the city and of the developer towards making this project a reality. And that will move forward then, and there will be subsequent platting for each filing as it moves forward. This is the first 1A and 1B. There will be, I believe, 4 total. So you'll see that in subsequent months to come. With that, I'll turn it over to Dan.
Great. Ann Bess Johnson with the City of Evans. Good evening and thank you. So staff's presentation is going to focus on this evening the criteria an applicant must meet for staff and city council to approve an application for a final plat, a neighborhood development plan, and the development guide. As Mr. Reedy indicated, we will not be hearing the development agreement tonight. We hope to bring that to you in 2 weeks, and if not in 2 weeks, it will be in January. So I want point of clarification. I made a mistake in the reference to the neighborhood development plans section in 3 of the documents that are in your packet. The code reference made was to section 1808-020H, but it's supposed to be 030H. And you can find those references on page 4 of the staff comments. It's just one reference, page 1 and 2 of the resolution, and page 1 of the city council report. But it's just a mistake. Instead of 20, it should be 30. So that's my fault, and I apologize. So if we can go to the next slide. The next slide will illustrate the city's process for final plat approval. And there are 4 main phases of this application, which is a pre-application, the application itself, public notice, and public hearings. And the application is consistent with the development standards found in 1808 of the municipal code. The development is consistent with the final plat, the neighborhood development plan, and the development guide process outlined in the city code. And referral agencies have had the opportunity to review the application, as have the public. Now, normally the public is not notified of a final plat. It just goes directly to city council. But we did go ahead and send out notice when the application was received back in March. The property was posted, and the notice was also placed in the Greeley Tribune. And then planning staff also has the opportunity to review the land use proposal to ensure consistency with the intended development patterns of the City of Evans established in the land use code and established by the comprehensive plan. So decisions that are made by staff and planning commission all along the way and city council are directed by the land use code through specific criteria of approval. And Karen is doing an amazing job. I know she's going to get it. The application for a final plat was submitted in February, and in one of the upcoming slides, we'll take a look at what that criteria is. But a series of reviews and resubmittals have occurred throughout the process since the application was submitted in February. Again, this is a very large development. And so there have been lots of opportunities for various staff to work with the applicant to iron out all the details. The applicant is anxious to get started with their development, and so they opted to also submit the final utility plans for concurrent review with the final plat. And because of that, we've been able to work on all those details up front versus in the end. So if we'll go to the next slide then, again, this is where the property is located. The northern boundary is 37th Street. The high school is on the corner, or middle school is on the corner of 37th and 65th. The eastern property boundary is 65th Avenue, and the western property boundary is 77th Avenue. So on the next slide, we can see the final plat. And this is a copy of what you have in your packet. I know it's small, it's a big property, but the applicant does seek approval of the final plat, the neighborhood development plan, and the development guideline. The request for approval of the final plat includes detailed platting for the first phase, which includes filing 1A, which is the easternmost portion of that southern leg, right here. And then B is this portion here and coming up to this, so the light gray area. So filing 1 includes 202 single-family lots and approximately 85 townhomes for a total of 287 dwelling units. Phase A, which is the portion to the east, is approximately 47.15 acres, and, oh no, that's B, and A is 43.15 acres. So that southern portion is just over 80 acres. And as a reminder, the Metro District was approved late last year in 2018. The change of zone to PUD was approved on February 19th, 2019 at a second reading by Ordinance 689-19. The preliminary plan then was approved on April 2nd by Resolution 8, 2018. And the final plat provides detailed plans for Phase 1, and then it proposes to plat the remainder of the property into tracts and outlots. And as Mr. Reedy and Mr. Becklenburg indicated, that you will see those in subsequent applications for those final plats. And this is a large development, and again, staff along with the applicant have been working together on this. Really for this size of application, going through the preliminary plan, change of zone, in just about a year is great timing. So we hope that the applicant has been happy with the processing, and again, we've been working well together. So the development agreement is the very next step, and that will come to you again either on the 17th of December or in early January. So on the next slide, along with the final plat, so the graphic on the right is the neighborhood development plan, and then the graphic represents the cover of the 51-page development guide. And so the development guide establishes what the setbacks are, the fencing materials, all of those design standards outlined in the development standards section of our land use code. And then the neighborhood development plan Depicts how the neighborhood will be developed, how it will be linked by trails and sidewalks, where all the future commercial could go, the mixed housing, and then how it connects regionally to trails and parks and connectivity plans for the city. Now, the development guide in the municipal code, the neighborhood development plan, there's sections 1806-050 that dictate what needs to be in a neighborhood development plan, and then section 1808-030H3 identifies the fact that all PUDs need to have a development plan. There are development guide. There are no structures for development guides in the code. There is structure for the neighborhood development plan, which was followed. So both documents have been reviewed with the final plat, the changes zone, the preliminary plan, the land use code, and the design standards. And there were a few variances or waivers that were requested by engineering. So far, everything is marrying up with what you approved with the preliminary plan. There have been some little tweaks here and there through the review process, but everything is lined up. There have been, I think 3 development review team meetings with staff. There have been several meetings with the applicant through this process to get to this final plat hearing tonight. So on the very next slide, we'll see that the review process for a final plat includes submitting the application, determining that it's complete, going through the referral process with internal as well as external referral agencies, doing an internal review with the code, the preliminary plan, everything that we just discussed, and then engineering and community development then do an evaluation of the application as well. And then a final plat does not go to to planning commission, it only goes to city council. And then the criteria for approval of a final plat is pretty light in our code. It indicates that the only basis for rejection shall be inconformities to adopted rules and regulations in the preliminary plan. And therefore, staff did a pretty detailed analysis to make sure everything conformed to that preliminary plan. And I'm sure the applicant has a good presentation planned for you. I'm available to answer any questions that you might have at this time, but can also answer any questions that you have after their presentation.
Can everyone hear me? Very good.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council of Evans. My name is Ken Punzarelli with LAI Design Group. Everybody on council appears to be the same group that I presented before with both preliminary plat and change of zone, and it's great to see you. I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. With me tonight, our applicant and client is Mr. Marc-Andre Levesque with ROI Land, Ryan with Northern Engineering, and Jen Carpenter, one of the principals at LAI Design Group. And I want to, before we get started, echo something that Ann mentioned about the size of the project and how quickly we got through the process. I know at times it may not have felt that way, but we do work in California, Oregon, Washington State, Utah, Colorado, Texas, and I would tell you that for a project of this size and scale, to get the level of cooperation and frankly customer service attention that the City of Evans has afforded the project, I would tell you, you have a very good team, and I know you know that, but as somebody that works all over the place, I'm telling you from experience that you have a very, very good team here, and they work diligently with us to get us through the process. So with that, do you have my... So we're going to do the imagine, if you will, my presentation. So in the interest of brevity, one of the things, there's a number of maps that Ann presented that I will also show, and since she's kind of covered some of the major things, I'll just fly through, and then other areas I'll spend some more detailed time on. But while we're waiting, we'll get there. Did anybody have any interesting family drama for Thanksgiving? I was lucky to avoid it this year, so. And thankful that I avoided it. Can you just do a drag and drop or no? Oh, that's ours. You want to do that one?
No, it was not working today.
See, that normally happens to me, so I'm thankful once again that it's not. All right. Well, Karen, thank you very much for your efforts. I know when technology doesn't cooperate, it's a little challenging. So do I get a clicker?
It didn't work for me, so good luck.
All right. And then this way is forward, right? Okay. So on the cover here is a rendering that we did for our first neighborhood park, as you may recall from previous presentations, and that's near our entrance. So as we know, the plat name is Peak View, and we've kind of gone through the Metro District name is Peak View, but our marketing name for the project is Solstice, as I think I've explained in the past. So, and kind of covered that we're looking at just under 90 acres of land that we're proposing 1A and 1B as our phases of our first filing of the final plat for 287 units. You guys know that you have a family-friendly town, and that's why we're interested in being here, and all the builders are as well. We've kind of covered our site location, but one of the things that I think is important to note that I believe Councilwoman Spear had spoken to at our last hearing or two ago is when we were talking about working with our neighbor, Mr. Weiss. And so we have met with him no less than 8 times, and those are the times that we can remember and document. But we are working on a fencing plan with him, and things are ready for signature. So I just wanted to report back on that because that was a concern. One of the other items, as everyone recalls, is the topography kind of breaks here. So this north and western portion of the property drains to the northwest where the wetlands are, and then the property that is in the south and eastern quadrant drains to the east. And then you'll see on our plan we have detention ponds and stormwater management facilities to accommodate that. We've been working with the various oil and gas entities, and some are already plugged and abandoned, and others are in process. Pictures of the site. So one of the things I always like to do when we're at final plat, so that folks can see the comparative analysis, is where we've been and where we are today, to see that there hasn't been any bait and switch, that everything is as we presented. And so the areas in yellow are all of the various housing, area in purple is multifamily, area in red is commercial, and then the area in orange is where our community center, clubhouse, and pool facility will be. And then, of course, all the areas in green are green space, either by virtue of native open space or actually improved park facilities. And then these are all the development summaries. So there's basically been an approval at the zoning stage for 1,097 units on the 225 acres of land. Our master plan, neighborhood plan, looks as it did when it was approved. And then here's our phasing plan that you may recall. I think color always helps these graphics read, and I do this for a living, but personally, I need color. So the area in orange, that will be our filing 1A that Ann alluded to earlier. And so our secondary access for the first phase of that filing will be in orange, and it goes out to 37th Street. And then once filing 1B comes on right behind, and I think these things will kind of dovetail one another very quickly based on the level of robust interest, I would tell you, that we're getting from builders. So sometimes when things don't happen as quickly as you like them to, it becomes a happy accident. Then once filing 1B in yellow here comes on, then we will build out that collector road right on out to 37th and build the detention pond improvements and those other facilities there in that plan. So here's our approved preliminary plat, and so that's what Ann showed, and that's what we got approved. And then the final plat is effectively what I just showed you in the phasing plan. So 1A is here and 1B is in yellow. And then here's everything kind of all on the same page. So you can see that the patterns are all the same. We've still got our major collectors, minor collector roads, and the same shapes of the streets and where the lots and neighborhoods occur. So one of the things you may recall from the zoning stage, while it wasn't necessary to show that because we get into that at the design guideline stage, we like to show that stuff because when we're looking at a rezoning, we're thinking about, well, what is this going to be when it gets to final plat? And so that's why we showed that. So nothing's really changed when it comes to the lot sizes going from 62 to 52, and these are by 110 front load garage type of houses here. And then in this scenario, these are a little bit smaller lots. Those are 50 foot and 40 foot by 110, depending on the product that's being offered to the different demographic of home buyer. You may recall me talking about the baby boomer and then the baby chaser. Well, that product up on the north is for the baby chasers, the grandma and grandpa coming to live nearby, the son-in-law, daughter-in-law who's got the high-powered job in the metro area, and they want to see the grandkids. So, and then we've got also alley-loaded, both single-family homes, detached, as well as townhomes that are again fed by an alleyway. And then our commercial development standards will all comply with City of Evans. And then so we have nearly, it's just shy of 50 acres of open space on this property. So about 24 of it is in parks, and the other 25 is in open space areas, including wetlands and so forth. But the idea is that it'll all be developed cohesively. The map on top shows all of the various pedestrian connectivity throughout the development. I would tell you that there's about 5 miles of pedestrian connections, including sidewalks and trails and perimeter walks around the property. So there's a lot of opportunity for strolling and enjoying the wonderful outdoors that Colorado has to offer. Our landscape intent will be to utilize native landscape plant material, water-wise. That's an even more important issue, even though we're getting a great snowfall this winter. It doesn't always happen that way, so we have to plan for when we don't get that. This graphic illustrates the intent for landscape treatments between public right-of-way and commercial parking lots, where we'll either have berming or landscaping or both Automobiles are typically not ugly. It's the asphalt that we all have to drive on that isn't as beautiful as we would like. We'll have nice-looking retaining walls when and if we have to have them, adjacent to detention ponds or other areas. Our fencing standards will include an open rail fence as well as a solid perimeter fence. The open rail fence will be where lots back up to open spaces, and the perimeter fencing will be along the property perimeter next to roads. This slide here again just shows our neighbors to the south, and we're very close to inking an agreement with Mr. Weiss, and Marc Andre, the applicant, actually just spoke with him again today. So this kind of rounds out the urban furniture and fixtures that we'll be seeing in the development, from standardization of benching, trash receptacles, bike racks, how we treat trash dumpsters in the commercial facilities, lighting standards, our entry monument sign for Solstice with the sun on there, made out of metal. And then our PUD specific standards. So we have a few of them that Ann touched on, and I'll just, I know I've mentioned these before, but I'll hit them real quick. So we've got 100-foot center line radius for our neighborhood streets. That way automobiles only drive 20 miles an hour. I think that's appropriate in a neighborhood. It's not about speed, it's about access. And it's perfectly acceptable for fire. Turning radiuses for fire trucks. And then whenever we get into a situation where we have a knuckle on our street, that radius is a 50-foot center line, but you then have this bump out here so that you have adequate area for turning radius and movement of large vehicles such as trash trucks and fire and safety. And then these just show our arterials on our east and west side, and north, excuse me. And then our major collector going north-south through the property. And then our minor collectors going east-west that ultimately connect to our major collectors. So you got this dendritic system of big to medium to little, and then to the local streets, which is how every master plan kind of works its way out, and then a 60-foot right-of-way in our neighborhoods. So there's a couple other minor tweaks here with respect to how the arterials work adjacent to the wetland areas. So they're typically supposed to have a detached sidewalk, but because of the wetlands and not wanting to disturb in that specific stretch of that arterial road that we'll be making these improvements to, that's the one area where we will have an attached sidewalk and a retaining wall on the wetland side, so we're not protruding out and disturbing the wetlands any more than we have to. And so that's the intention there. And we've talked about this aspect before, and Public Works and Planning, and everybody seems to be accepting of that aspect. So these are all of the various conditions of approval that staff has put in your packet. The applicant, the consulting team, none of us have any objection to any of these conditions of approval, and we hope that you'll look favorably upon our application. We look forward to building a wonderful series of neighborhoods to add to Evans. So thank you.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this issue? Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition of this issue? Seeing none, I'm assuming you have no rebuttal to any of that. Council, questions of the applicant or of city staff?
I have a question, Ann. Do you include the fire district in the review?
Of course, yes, Chief Prestera comes to all of our design review team meetings and has reviewed this several times.
Thank you.
And we were fortunate enough, if I might, to have him at one of our meetings with the town so that we could discuss everything too. So, thank you.
I do appreciate you guys coming out here, and I do appreciate that you are continuing on with the development, and there hasn't been any significant changes to the development and the plans that you've submitted and everything like that. So, and I'm also glad that you have reached out to the neighbor and you are trying to work through that agreement to get his issues taken care of and everything like that. But my position on this hasn't changed. I'm still in favor of it, and I'm glad that you have chosen to come to Evans and look forward to continue with the project.
Thank you, Councilman Clark.
I have a question regarding the commercial.
Yes.
Are you guys planning on building out the commercial, or are you planning on just having it zoned commercial and then anticipating someone else to come in and purchase that from you and develop it?
Yeah, that's a great question. We see the commercial sitting there for a little while because we need rooftops in order to generate interest in that. But the reality is some commercial developer will probably come in and buy it and build out the center. And so they'll have to go through site plan process. Just like we did with final plat, they'll have to get into the minutia of the development of that.
Yeah, I just was wondering if you were coming in with someone in your back pocket that you had
Yeah.
already had planned for that.
At this point in time, no, but that's certainly a possibility where land is put into the deal and then somebody else brings capital to build the vertical and infrastructure. That's certainly a possibility. We would never close the door on that, but at this point in time, I'm not aware of any situation.
And then my other question, which is probably to both the city and to the applicant, I do appreciate you working with Mr. Weist on the fencing.
Mm-hmm.
Good fences make good neighbors, as I've said before. I am concerned about the wording on this. It says the applicant shall provide an executed copy of the agreement with Mr. Weist regarding fencing. And it goes on to say the applicant shall provide evidence that a reasonable attempt to reach an agreement has been met should the agreement not be able to be finalized. I think that leaves it a little bit open to someone saying, hey, we just couldn't deal with him, or we couldn't come up with, an agreement. A little ambiguous here.
I can probably respond, at least from an applicant perspective, on how some of that language came to be, but I think we probably won't need the ambiguity in the language in the end, but I can tell you there were a few meetings where it went from we'll build you a fence to I want that, plus I want you to give me a big check and all kinds of other stuff. So that's not really what the intent of the whole neighborly building the good fence spirit and intent was. And so now that it appears that everything's gotten back on track, we're happy to build a fence on Mr. Weiss's property to protect him from the dogs, the cats, and the bicycles.
Well, it goes the other way too. There's wild critters out there that will be invading into the into the property, and
Oh yeah, fence won't
seeing-
stop them either. They don't stop them in my house.
Fence is a little bit of a deterrent, so
Yeah, sure.
And also trash and stuff too.
Mhm, agreed.
So I just want to make sure that, as far as wanting the financial part of it, I understand that, but a fence itself, and not even necessarily on his part of the property, it would be really good on your part of the property too. So I'm still in agreement with it upon the condition of a fence.
But that's why that ambiguity got in there, because things got a little sideways, and the spirit and intent that we all visited about last winter kind of evaporated. And it's like, wow, where did this come from? So I think we're good now.
Yeah, and I just don't want the ball to be dropped on the
Yeah,
fence.
we don't either.
Exactly, and Counselor Spear, that is the intent. I believe the neighbor wants the fence, the developer wants the fence. The intent is to have the fence. However, as the applicant's representative has indicated, we just wanted to make sure that a third party didn't get involved in controlling the outcome of a city decision should the requests be unreasonable. I met with Mr. Wiest several times as well, and I believe things are getting back to where they began in February, March, and April.
Well, I mean, and certainly if the fence is on your part of the property, you can build whatever kind of fence you want, whether you want it to be a 4-foot tall, picket wood fence, but some kind of a dividing line between your development and whatever is going to be on the south side, whether it be farmland or another developer or, whatever it is, cemetery, whatever.
Sure.
It's just traditionally all of the other developments have had fences around. I think Mark lives in one where there's a fence designating his development there. So,
If I could add, the challenge became the only fence that the neighbor wanted was a 6-foot tall chain link fence.
8, actually.
8-foot tall chain link fence.
If he didn't get it, he was gonna stockpile manure there. And we actually just struck that out of the agreement to satisfy him, that said he couldn't do that even after we built the 8-foot fence, because he's not going to be told what to do, even though that was a threat. So now we've taken that out, and the spirit and intent is a gentleman's agreement. Please don't stockpile manure there, but there's nothing we can do to enforce that after we build the fence. So this is really morphed, as you can imagine, by some of what we're telling you.
right.
And according to the city's design standards, chain link is not allowed in that type of development. And so it was creating a way to offer the chain link then to be on his property
In the county.
in the county. So that's where some
How it
of
got
the,
onto his property.
yes, special
Okay.
nuances crept in that then became a little, some hurdles to get over, but I'm glad to hear that it will be resolved.
Other questions of the staff or applicant?
Done.
Probably more drama than you wanted to know about this fence on this wonderful project. It all came down to the fence, but anyway, we're there.
No other questions? I'll close the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Council discussion, I am 100% in favor of this. I think it looks fantastic. I think it's going to be a great addition to the city of Evans. I'm really looking forward to it. Fence, whatever. We'll figure that out.
No,
So I'm all for it. I think it's going to be great.
No, I've been 100% agreeing with you as well. And as the applicant said, about the commercial, as soon as we start putting more rooftops in and getting more people in there, that commercial development's going to happen. So it's inevitable that that's going to come. It's just.
I just didn't know if they had their own
Hopefully
development
they might have something in their
ideas
back
coming
pocket.
in, or, from
Wanted to
different
get
parts
more,
of
she was
the
fishing for more information.
country. And yes, a fence is very important. I have
Sure,
to
I
tell
agree.
you. I have a big neighbor.
I'm not saying I don't
I have
agree,
a
but
very
I
big
don't-
neighbor that if there wasn't a fence there, there'd be a lot more issues.
But I
so.
don't not agree with them putting that in there. He's going to say, okay, I want a 6-foot fence. And they're going to say, okay, and he's going to now I want it 9 feet.
Yeah,
And they're going to go, okay, now 12.
Yeah,
I'm okay with the wording in there. I'm fine with it. So that's all I got on that.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to recuse myself from this and the next matter relative to Peak View for previously stated reasons.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Other comment?
I think it sounds like it's gonna be a nice development, and I'm glad that we've finally got something hopefully settled within the next couple of weeks with the adjacent property owners. It can be a very trying experience, I'm sure, to work with people sometimes that are orientated towards a different lifestyle. So,
Are you condemning rural people?
nope. Not a
But it sounded like to me.
bit. No.
I echo the mayor. I think this is definitely going to be a great addition to the city, and it looks really nice. I'm excited to see it come up. Thanks.
Anyone else, Tammy? Got anything? There's no other discussion. I'd entertain a motion.
1 second.
All right, I move to approve resolution number 27-2019 as proposed.
I
A
second.
second.
Add anything onto that, or are you good?
I'm good.
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 27-2019 as proposed. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item, item B, public hearing. Continuation of the public hearing on ordinance 689-19 Peakview annexation and zoning. And I will reopen the public hearing and hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an item the council's now quite familiar with. There is a small piece of land that had not been annexed with the original property that will become Peakview. The council has taken a couple steps now in the annexation process to bring that into the city so that it's properly recorded and can be part of the development. We had scheduled initially continuation of the public hearing on the zoning component of this annexation. However, the first step would have been a hearing recommendation from the Planning Commission on this zoning action. That meeting had been scheduled for Tuesday, November 26th. Due to extreme weather, we had closed the city facilities and could not hold that meeting that night. We have rescheduled or postponed that meeting, Planning Commission meeting, to December 10th, next week. Therefore, we're asking that you continue, we're continuing the item?
Yes.
Yes, to date certain of December 17th at your regular city council meeting. So we'll have the Planning Commission catch up on this and have a recommendation for you, assuming we can get the meeting scheduled, finalized for December 10th. If that happens, we'll have this back in front of you for December 10th. So that's why we are recommending continuation of this item to your December 17th meeting. That's all we have, Mayor.
Thank you, Jim. The recommendation is to continue it, but this is a public hearing, so I would like to ask if there's anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this issue? Or anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to this issue? Okay, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to continue the public hearing to consider ordinance 689-19 to the December 17, 2019 City Council meeting.
Second.
A motion and a second to continue the public hearing on ordinance 689-19 Peakview annexation and zoning to December 17th, 2019. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item, consideration of purchase agreement for open space property in vicinity of the Arrowhead neighborhoods. Hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. In the summer of 2017, staff were approached by Jeff and Diane Engelman about potential development requirements related to their property that they own just at the southwest corner of the intersection of 37th Street and 47th Avenue. The property lies within Weld County, adjacent to Evans. It occupies 11 acres between the Arrowhead subdivision or the lake and the intersection, and is zoned for agriculture by Weld County, but it does have a use by special review permit for commercial self-storage use. I will note for the public that this the property that we're talking about is the land between the intersection and the lake there. It does not include the lake itself. At this point, we've been talking with the Engelmans for some time. In recent months, they have indicated some urgency in disposing of the property, and they've effectively given the city here some right of first refusal, since we've been talking now for a couple years about potential city interest in acquisition of the property for potential open space or park use. Just to recap the history further, at the October 3rd, 2017 meeting, the council approved a letter of intent to explore the potential purchase of the property, pending further development of the open space park concept and appraisal by a third-party certified appraiser. Also discussions with the Arrowhead Water Association or Lake Association and the Neighborhood Homeowners Association, and negotiations with the Engelmans. So we've been working on that now for some time. So the first step there was for the city to evaluate the property, and it is our opinion that the property could serve as a very inviting and strategic park and trailhead that could anchor much of the city's future envisioned trail master plan that's been in the works now for several years. The location at this key intersection and adjacent to the lake make it accessible to the entire community, and we could also, if we could keep it essentially the way it is with very little park development, preserve the view shed on 47th Avenue driving south as that entrance to Evans matures and develops. Since there are water rights associated with the property that would not necessarily be needed if the city acquired it for open space, acquisition of the property would also secure these rights, and it's in the form of approximately 7 EQRs, which is our unit for water, that could be used elsewhere by the city or conserved within the city's water portfolio. I think we have a couple photos just to show the trail network, and that's the first. Let me stop there for just a moment. That's a preliminary concept that was discussed with the Arrowhead neighborhood to show kind of a concept for what a passive park or open space could be in that location. As we've outlined it here, it shows that there would not be significant park facilities developed, but that the land would be left relatively unchanged with as you see in the orange, a potential walking trail around the property, and some parking at the southeast corner there of the parkway just off of Arrowhead Drive, and probably several different picnic facilities that could be used, small ones. This would not be envisioned as a large event site. The green that you see there is potential buffering from the lake. As we met with the Arrowhead neighborhood, they expressed some interest, and we have the same interest to keep folks from accessing the lake. And there's been talk that a low-level fence or native tall grasses could provide an effective but still attractive barrier there to keep folks from accessing the water, at least casually there. If you could show the other graphic that we have, this just shows how that property fits into the larger community. You see about, I don't know, Karen, if you can find 47th Avenue. There's a blue, if you come about just past halfway out to the left on the page. Keep going. Just a little more. Put the hand up north, but there you go, right there. You can see how this park and that walking path could anchor the future trail network for Evans and be very attractive as a place to meet up for people or to get some exercise there. So, public outreach, mentioned meetings. We did have meetings with both associations in 2017. While I can't say that the neighbors are excited about having any activity there on that property. They had expressed in short that if it were to develop at all, they would, rather it be this kind of passive walking trail park as opposed to commercial development. We do have emails from both associations expressing that opinion. They did express a couple concerns, mostly related to signage, the lake, traffic on Arrowhead Drive. We think that we're able to work through all of those with kind of some of the mechanisms that I just spoke to, and also kind of the way that the Prairie View Drive will dovetail in with 47th as that property develops. We think we can deflect a lot of the potential traffic there with both signage and also kind of that traffic configuration there at the future roundabout as that develops. Property value was a very important component. We did work with Foster Valuation Company, master appraisers here in town. The appraisal from July 2017 was just over $1 million, $1,028,000, plus the value of the water and the sewer taps that are on the property. This was based on the site's highest and best use, which, as I mentioned, is currently for self-storage. So we've been talking with the Engelmans and recently came to a verbal agreement subject to council's approval on a sale price of $1,203,790, which is a very, I think, basic or direct translation of the appraised value plus 5% for market appreciation since July of 2017. We've verified that with some brokers that we work with and feel that it's a very reasonable assumption for appreciation, plus the value of the water and the sewer taps based on the city's current fee schedule. So pretty straightforward. Staff recommends purchasing the property with park development impact fees. And I think this is important for the council and for the public to understand that if council uses those funds are funds that are collected by development, all the housing, all the other development that's been happening in Tuscany and all over that area, frankly, for the last several years. Funds that can only be used for recreation amenity acquisition. The city is prohibited from using those funds even for maintenance of those amenities. Certainly can't be used for roads or law enforcement or any other city services. Those park development impact fees can only be used for acquiring amenities like parks or other facilities like that. The 2019 projected year-end fund balance in that fund is approximately $3.5 million. So the 1.2 million would fit within that amount and still leave enough funds for the council to continue its long-term master planning for parks and acquire this as a facility to be part of that network long-term. I'll mention that ultimately a portion of this property, the right-of-way would be used for the widening of 37th Street. Engineering staff have estimated that acquisition, when the city would have to go out and purchase it, is worth about $240,000. That's probably what we would have to pay if we didn't own it. So when the time comes to widen 37th Street in this place, that cost should be borne by the 37th Street project so that we don't have the circumstance where we've effectively used impact fees for the street widening. So at that time, we would transfer whatever that value is from the project budget back to the park impact fee budget so that fund is made whole, meaning the net cost for the property is about $963,790. So that's the summary. We're asking tonight, we have worked with the Engelmans and with the city attorney on a purchase agreement. With your approval tonight, we would have that purchase of agreement and work toward property closing within the next couple months. That concludes our remarks, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Jim. And while this is not a public hearing, I do see Mr. and Mrs. Engelmann here. I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add, or if you'd like to talk a little bit about it, or you definitely don't have to. Just wanted to give you the option to if you'd like.
I don't have a lot to offer. I do want to thank Jim and Brian for working with us on that. They were very thorough and very conscious about the whole process and made it enjoyable. So I appreciate that. So,
Thank you very much.
do you have any questions of us? Or?
We might. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you for all your efforts because you've always maintained that, always nicely. So it's been noticed.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, council discussion. I do just want to emphasize what Jim said. I am all in favor of this land if it's used by park impact fees. That is the only way I'm for it. That is what it's there for, and that's what it's for. Like he said, we can't build roads, we can't build a police station, we can't fix this building. It's built for, that money is dedicated for parks, and this would be a great use of it. So I am for it, but only using park impact fees, not using general budget money.
And I would agree with that. I know when we were initially having preliminary discussions, that was my biggest concern, is going out and getting into the real estate market and buying land again. But being that that was clarified that that's the only thing that money can be used for, and it has a strategic plan in place, because we will need to, acquire some of that property for the widening of 37th Street there and 47th. I'm in favor of.
Thank you. I would just echo the sentiments of Mayor Rudy and Mayor Pro Tem Clark. I think that this is a really great solution for us, and I think it provides a beautiful entrance into, or beautiful centerpiece, I'll say, for our city, and really, from a financial standpoint, being able to offset a portion of costs for the 37th widening really just makes sense. So I think it's great, and I completely agree. If we're using park impact fees, that's the way to go.
I really enjoy driving by on 37th Street and seeing Arrowhead Lake. Mr. Engelman has kept the property up with mowing, and it looks very attractive, and it's very nice. I think that previously I wasn't in favor of this because of our previous no mow policy. And I have to say that one of the things that's helped me decide in favor of this has been the way our public works and our park staff has really made a very big effort on keeping our parks clean this year and doing the mowing and making our property look good. So, if we can continue to make it look as good as what the current owner has it, I think that it would be a beautiful center place for our city.
I agree with everyone. I've always been in favor of acquiring this piece of land. I always drive past it. It's a great little area. I did not want to see it covered with anything because I think that would be a disservice to that little, to that area. I think it's definitely a landmark for our city, and just the fact that what the future holds for that area, it's really big things are happening, and I think keeping it the way it is, having a passive park, will definitely contribute to making it beautiful and continuing to make that area beautiful. So I'm excited. I'm very excited, and I'm excited that we're at this place right now, and we're getting it. If Sherry was here, I'm like, yes, we did it. But I'll call her. But yes, thank you. So I'm in favor.
Well, I've enjoyed the view for over 45 years since moving to Greeley, and I am glad that we were given the opportunity to acquire this instead of having development on it. I think it's going to make it's going to be a joy for people to experience in future years.
the sight line. It'll maintain the sight line, like, just nice. And not only that, just considering that there's a lot of residential coming up, you know, things being, like, the elevation will come up in certain areas, just to have an area of, like, of a park, tranquility, it's gonna just kind of balance it. So I can speak volumes, so, of why we should have it, but I'm excited that we're heading in that direction.
Any other comments? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the purchase agreement with the Jeff and Diane Engelman Trust for property described herein and in the purchase agreement in the amount of $1,203,790, and authorize the mayor to sign the purchase agreement and the city manager to sign all subsequent documents to complete the transaction.
I second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the purchase agreement with Jeff and Diane Engelman Trust for property described herein and in the purchase agreement in the amount of $1,203,790, and authorize the mayor to sign the purchase agreement and the city manager to sign all subsequent documents to complete the transaction. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, item D, consideration of 37th Street Utility Improvements Construction Management Contract Extension. Hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. In October, the council approved a change order and time extension for the 37th Street Utilities Project for the contractor Duran Excavating. This is just really a trailing item, potentially administrative. The city has, for the whole project, had our own third-party contract manager, construction manager on site for that project. And that service is part of what helped us to have the very detailed information with which council was presented when we considered that change order for the contractor. So that I would just, with that, I would ask Randy Reedy and Mark Oberschmidt to just give us a brief overview of what we're asking for tonight. And this is an extension essentially for the construction manager contract to keep up with the construction.
Thank you, Jim. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, as Jim said, we're looking to, as Duran is going to substantial completion at the end, December 18th is currently the date, and then final completion will be January 18th, is what's intended at this point in time. So after we completed that change order with Duran, we went back to Roxall, our representative on site, and discussed with them the time that they would need on a daily basis to work out if we were going to stay underneath their original not-to-exceed contract of $173,500. And based on our analysis and our discussions with them and taking into account reduced time on holidays and looking into that, we've determined that overall we're going to need an additional $15,790 above that not-to-exceed budget that was originally approved by council when the project was started. So with that, that's why we're looking for to extend their contract to a total of, with an additional $48,000. That accounts for $15,000, which remains in their existing contract, and that $32,241 noted in your packet. We worked with them to break it down after we finished with Duran to make sure that we knew what kind of hours we were going to look at, just to see if possibly they could have done it within their original contract. But we determined as the project closes out, we need to make sure that we get necessary as-built. We need to make sure that we get the necessary information documented so that when we come back in the future to look at this road for anything, we don't run into as many surprises. And that's one of the things we're working forward with to be proactive on future projects, is to be a little more less surprised, so to speak, as we know where things are rather than finding them with the excavator. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. Questions of staff?
Well, in addition just to the holidays, weather, do you foresee that also being an issue, considering that we were getting snow a little earlier than?
Well, weather days are usually taken into account, and not so much that we account for them ahead of time, but if there is a weather day, that allowed into their contract. So far this month, I think they've had a week's worth of weather days, or through November so that will extend. So the formal date, which was on the contract change order, is December 18th, but with the weather days, they actually have a few extra days beyond that, but they've been making really good progress. So they're still telling us as of this morning that they think they'll finish up the water line work and a little bit of sanitary sewer and water line over on the east side by that December 18th deadline. Now, the final patching may be a little cold patch and whatnot, and we'll have to come back and check on that in the spring, but the underground work will be completed.
So just to make sure, we've got the increase that was awarded to Duran Excavating at the October meeting, and now this potential increase. Do we have any other vendors beyond Roxall and Duran that we would anticipate an increase for, or are these the two primary
These are
vendors?
the two primaries, yeah.
Okay.
And any subs that are under Duran are on their contract.
Wonderful.
So these are
Thank
the
you
only
for the
two
clarity.
contractors that we're paying directly.
Great, thank you.
I just want to say that I hope that we meet the deadline. It seems like, you know, we're promising this will get done. We're giving our citizens, you know, a date. And then I mean, I know there's things that play into it. Now we're giving them another date, and then now we're giving another date. I just want to make sure that we're showing our citizens we can get a project done on time, within budget, and everything like that, you know, barring any unforeseen, circumstances, nature, et cetera. But it just seems like we're constantly going back to this, and it's getting pushed back, and the dates keep getting moved to the right.
Well, and we are trying to stop doing that with 31st Street access, which is just pretty much complete at this point except for seating. That one's actually, even with the delays that were caused by XL, we actually came in pretty good on time, and we are under budget on that one.
Great.
Any other comments or questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that the city council approve a request, sorry, I don't have my glasses with me. A request for a contract change order to authorize $32,241 in additional funds for construction management services associated with the 37th Street Utilities Improvement Project, and with a new contract amount of $205,741.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve a request for a contract change order to authorize $32,241 in additional funds for construction management services associated with 37th Street Utilities Improvement Project with a new contract amount of $205,741. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, item E, public hearing, consideration of the 2019 budget second revision. I will open the public hearing and hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. At the council's November 19th work session, the council heard a detailed report and had discussion on the recommended second budget revision for the 2019 budget. This item had also been reviewed by the Finance Committee on November 4th, who recommended approval of the items here. I will ask our Finance Director, Jackie Trott, to just give a brief summary of the budget revision, and then we'll ask for your consideration of the ordinance tonight.
Thank you, Jim. Good evening, Mayor Rudy, members of City Council. As indicated, the items laid out in your staff report and also outlined in Attachment A are the individual budget revision items being requested tonight for the second revision to the 2019 budget, and is the final revision to the 2019 budget as we near the end of the year. I did just want to highlight, without going through each of these in detail, many of them did have revenue offsets, which was a really nice net effect for the city. So many of them we looked, not only do we have additional revenue above and beyond the anticipated original budgeted amount that would help offset these necessary expenses, and we were able to identify many of those. I will also highlight that with your prior conversation, this ordinance would likely be amended. Staff recommends that it would be amended at the second reading to also include the land purchase previously approved. We're recommending that amount be budgeted at $1,220,000 to cover any closing costs or anticipated fees that would be above and beyond the contract amount as well. With that, though, there are no other changes to the versions that were reviewed previously or discussed in detail at work session, but I would be happy to answer any questions that council may have at this time.
Thank you, Jackie. Any questions of staff?
You read my mind. My only question was on the land, so.
Yeah, and Mayor, if I could recommend some language, we actually think you could probably amend this ordinance tonight on first reading.
Okay.
With your recommendation. Recommended language might be staff recommends approval. Well, I move to adopt ordinance number 709-19 on first reading with amendment to include the amount that I've just lost.
$1,220,000 appropriating from the Park Impact Fund.
Yep. Got that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this issue? Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition of this issue? Hearing none, is there any other questions of staff from the council? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Council discussion?
I was in agreement with Councilmember Castle regarding the land purchase there, and I'm glad we're going to include that in there.
Thanks. Any other discussion by council? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to adopt ordinance number 709-19 on first reading with the amendment to include $1,220,000 from the Park Impact Fund for the land purchase approved tonight.
A second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 709-19, including $1,220,000 from the Park Impact Fund for the land purchase tonight. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item F, 2020 property tax levy. We'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an administrative item whereby the City of Evans must certify to the county commissioners by December 15th the mill levy for the 2019 taxes that will be paid next year, so in 2020. The city's mill levy has not changed in many years without any action by council, and there is no recommendation certainly, and would take a vote of the people to change. But without those things happening, the mill levy will remain at 3.536 mills, and that plus the calculation of assessed value, which is also required by state law, is included in Resolution 40-2019. We're asking for your consideration tonight.
Thank you, Jim. Questions of staff, comments? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to adopt resolution number 40-2019.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt resolution 40-2019. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item 9, report, city manager.
Mayor, just a couple things tonight. Want to mention again the upcoming town hall meetings for our roads. Hopefully outreach to the community about roads. We have 3 of them planned. First one is December 12th at 6:30 p.m. The second one is December 16th, also at 6:30 p.m. That one will be delivered exclusively in Spanish. And the third is December 19th, also at 6:30 p.m. All of those will be held here at the community complex.
Do we know who's facilitating?
Who our Spanish presenters will be. They will be primarily Efren Rodriguez, who works in our operations department, who's very familiar with the streets and is eager to help share the message with the community, assisted by our Assistant City Manager, Randy Reedy, who also speaks Spanish. So that'll be good to have that feature for our residents. Also want to mention, if you haven't driven past the long-awaited demolition of the redevelopment agency property at 31st Street and the Highway, southeast corner. Once it came, it happened fast. Those buildings are down, and the contractor did a great job of clearing the site promptly also. I understand that some state inspectors were on site today, finishing their final permit reviews for the property on the southwest corner. So with that taken care of and presumably permits issued, the contractor will be able to demolish the buildings on the southwest corner very soon as well. So we'll see that by the end of the year. Finally, I did kind of surprise her with an ad hoc introduction, but I do want to just reintroduce to the council, not a new face, but Ann Bess Johnson was selected as our community development director. She's been serving the city for quite a while, several years. First as a kind of backup planner for the former director, so she was familiar with our land use code. She then stepped in as our primary planning manager for the last year plus, and was able to really help us make some headway, make some changes to our land use processes, even in that contract role, and helped us to move a lot of development along. Now we have her, instead of a couple days a week, 5 days a week, and we're very excited about that. Ann has a couple decades worth of planning experience and I believe 2 master's degrees, and comes to us with lots of experience and great ideas for strengthening our land use process, and lots of improvements for Evans. So we're really pleased to have Ann. You'll be seeing her more. Some of the things that you'll see with those additional hours include the long-range planning the council's been looking for, and we've been looking forward to some of the more of the annexation planning in earnest, working with our neighbors. She's been keeping up with our, what we call current planning, but I know she's excited and maybe even more excited about the bigger picture land use improvements and annexation growth work that will come with her new role. So we're very excited to have Ann join our team. That's all I have, Mayor.
Congratulations. We're excited to have you all 5 days.
City Attorney.
Just briefly, we've got a couple of executive sessions, so I'll keep it short, other than to note that we do have the new Assistant City Attorney, Drew Lyman, that will start on Monday.
Thank you, Scott. Next item on the agenda is audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address City Council on any item? Seeing none, the next item on the agenda would be an executive session. However, we do have a ERA meeting, so I'm going to put this meeting in hold. We will come back into that. So I will recess the City Council meeting. We will come back into the ERA meeting. Welcome everyone to the ERA meeting for December 3rd, 2019. I'm the chair, Brian Rudy. Call the meeting to order. Can I have roll call, please?
Chair Rudy?
Here.
Vice Chair Clark?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Present.
Commissioner Spear?
Here.
Commissioner Mortensen?
Here.
Commissioner Castle?
Here.
Commissioner Neal?
President.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item 4, consent agenda, approval of the October 1st, 2019 Evans Redevelopment Agency meeting minutes. Item B, consideration of resolution number ERA-004-2019, a resolution designating the public place for the posting of notices of public meetings.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item 5, new business. ERA 2019 budget revision number 2. We'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. This item really mirrors the action that you just took on the city's budget. This is the second budget revision for the year. I'll just note that the only change in the ERA budget is for the costs related to the demolition of the properties that are underway. As we had presented to council when you considered that contract, we would need an additional $102,839 of funding for that project. As you know how the ERA funding works, at this point, this would be an additional transfer from the general fund that could be paid back when the properties develop. So this would be a transfer from general fund balance to the Evans Redevelopment Authority in the amount of $102,839. I believe that's the only change, and our two capable staff for economic development and finance are here to answer any questions if you have them. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Jim. Questions of staff?
Questions? Pretty straightforward.
All right. Good. Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the 2019 budget revision.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the 2019 budget revision. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you, guys. Meeting adjourned. I will bring us back into our city council meeting.
I move to go into executive session to confer with the city attorney on specific legal questions and to provide direction from negotiators in connection with the pending Advantage Bank litigation and to discuss the performance evaluation of the city manager pursuant to CRS 24-6-402, Section 4, subsections B, E, and F.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to go into executive session. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. We will go to executive session. You guys want to do it? Normally we do it in the room there, but are you guys comfortable doing it?